But it's the bridge between where we are to where we want to go, and going on that journey and being content and happy in the now whilst we work for what we want, but knowing that what we want can also change as we evolve, trying to achieve this goal as well.
I think it's look, for me, and I am not perfect. I I don't proclaim to be perfect at this at all. And there can be often a sense of impatience with, getting to the goal because we love instant gratification now. But I think something that has worked for me is reflecting at the end of each day on what I'm grateful for. So that would be the first thing, having that gratitude practice. And the second thing would be understanding, that life is it's a marathon. It's not, your sprint. It's not your race, and that if you're getting a sense of achievement from ticking off your goals progressively, then you're achieving along the way, and that can create, that sense of success and therefore wanting to go further. I think it's really dependent on the goal that you're striving to achieve, because we face into so much change now. It's just constant. Like, you don't know what's coming at you anymore and what could change tomorrow. So we have to be open to being adaptable and to being flexible with our goals now. I think that just needs to be a bit of a mindset. It's almost as though you expect it to change slightly, and in understanding that your road to getting to a goal might not be linear, or it might not be a trajectory. It's sort of like a bit of a jungle gym. Now it's like you go here to go back, to go across and then up, and you might go back and then up again. So I think it's, if you innately know, if your intuition is telling you that this is the right goal for you, then I think it is the right goal for you. It needs to be something that means something for you, that you're passionate about, not something that you think sounds good or think others might want, or it might make you look good, because then it goes into the whole ego thing. It's like, if I get this, I can say this and I'll be amazing. So I think it needs to be something that's incredibly meaningful. And if your intuition's going, yeah, that's it, then that's it. But if you don't feel anything about your goal or about what you're wanting to achieve, then I think you need to ask some questions. Why?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely solid advice. And I think that maybe in my 20s, when I set goals, it was very more materialistic. Like, I want to buy a house and I want to do this and I want to do this. And then you get the house and you go, oh, is this all there is? And the why wasn't strong enough, and there was no meaning and there's no fulfillment. So when I reflect now, it's like, when I set a goal, it's like, well, who would I need to become in order to achieve that? But also, what's the why behind it, and what's the deeper meaning of why do I want to achieve that, and what would that mean, and who also that impacts, and who would that help? So it's interesting, but it's been a journey, and it's one that we're constantly evolving through ourselves. But I was just thinking then, as we were sort of talking about the title of the book, You Always Have a Choice, and I'm such a big believer that we need to take responsibility for every single thing in our lives. And I think that as soon as we do, we then we regain our power. As soon as we blame, the government, other people, the bank, we are giving away our power. And it's a really, really hard thing to do. And I'm not saying it's easy. I still struggle with this myself. But let's just say if someone's listening to this right now and going, right, well, I've made a series of bad choices in my life, and I'm taking ownership for that. I am where I am now because of those bad choices. How can they begin to trust themselves again? And you mentioned the word intuition, because I think sometimes when we've made a series of bad choices and we're in this bad spot, we don't trust ourselves, and then that can lead to worse choices again. So how can we get out of that rut of making those bad choices?
It's an interesting question, because often, our bad choices in life can teach us something. And it's a matter of if you're self-aware enough to understand what the teachings are, what the lesson is, and if you learn from them. So it's not a bad choice if you learn from it. It's not a bad decision unless you learn from it. But it's also an understanding, like, you can't change the past. Your decisions that you've made in the past are your decisions. You can't influence that at all. What you can influence are the decisions that you make from here on in. And I totally agree with taking responsibility for them. So they're your choices. When you take responsibility for those, that is when, as you said, you regain your power and you can then understand the reasons as to why you made them and learn from those. And that's where the learning can come into it. And it's certainly, it's not an opportunity to allow to beat yourself up, to make yourself feel bad, because we all do it. We all make, what's classified as a bad decision, but it's what you learn from it in the process. So I think in terms of improving choices moving forward or improving your decisions moving forward, I keep saying this word, it's really like connecting back to your values. I think it's on being really, really connected to your values and what you stand for. And therefore, are the decisions or the choices that you're making aligned with your values, your priorities, and what you stand for as a person? If I share an example, there was one stage where I was taken to Malaysia in the role of motivational coach. Okay, so that was my title at the time. And there was an activity organized at this event, and I was to be part of this. And what it was, it's for people to break through their fear, their fear barriers, or get out of their comfort zones. And what you had to do was handle a snake. Now, that went against everything that I stand for, and it went against my core beliefs, because I'm a huge animal lover, and for that snake to be in that bag, it would be drugged, and that is totally against what I stand for. So I had to make this decision. It's like, okay, so are you going to decide to handle this snake and go against everything that you stand for? Or are you going to make the decision to be true to you and take responsibility for what comes with that? So I made the decision to stay true to who I was, and I chose not to handle the snake. And that was not looked upon well. And I haven't been invited back to be part of an event of that nature again. And it's like you can go down, oh my God, that's cash flow. That's what are people going to think of me? And, there could be an annual thing that you can be part of. But I would have regretted that decision for the rest of my days. So I took responsibility for what came with that, and I'm okay with it. I had to stay true to who I was and not compromise my values. And that is where the power can come into play, when you are totally anchored to who you are, what you stand for. It's like that. You can be like a tree, if you like a tree, and the roots are your values and what you stand for, what you don't. And the tree can sway. Like I swayed, but then I stood firm. So I'm not going to fall over that way. I'm staying true to who I am. So I hope that analogy, helped in terms of answering that question. And it's not easy. It's not something that you can just do at the click of a finger. And sometimes you might make a bad decision, and I often still do it. And it's like, I think when you feel bad about it, when you feel bad about making that decision, it was wrong, and not to do it again.